So there.
Okay. This is the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. It is February 6th, 2 o'clock, and we're ready to get started. All members are present. I can't, sorry. I'm having a hard time sitting still with this eye surgery business. It's kind of flat. So roll call, please. Call us to order.
Director Eisenhart,
Present.
Director Edwards,
Here,
Chair Anderson.
Here,
All members are present.
are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, there are not.
Okay, at this time, we can invite the public to make any comments that they might have. They have 3 minutes, and it's for items that are not listed on this agenda. Is
And
anyone
there-
interested in speaking?
There are no members of the public.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, we have action items to start with, unless there's something somebody else has to start with. Okay, the first item is the adoption of the January 17th committee meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections on those minutes?
for me, I move approval.
Okay. Director Eisenhart?
None.
Okay, so I move, I second. So all those,
You need a roll call?
I think we needed a roll call, yeah. That's what we need.
Director Eisenhart,
Abstain.
Director Edwards,
Approval?
Chair Anderson.
Yes, approval.
Motion passes 2-0. Sorry. 2 votes in favor and 1 abstained.
So the next issue is resolution 2023-03, amending rule 141. It's about rebate amounts and to add a rebate for smart toilet leak detectors. Stephanie Locke is up.
Thank you. At the September 9th meeting, the Water Demand Committee reviewed this item and unanimously supported adding a rebate for smart toilet leak detectors. Those devices are attached to the toilet and connected via a smart network to notify maintenance personnel via either text or a computer alert in the event of a toilet leak. And so this was discussed by Water Demand Committee. The committee agreed that there should be a new rebate. They supported it, and the recommended amount was 25% of the cost of the individual monitoring device in installations where there were at least 20 units installed. The system prices do vary among different vendors. And so that's another reason we would recommend a percentage of the cost and capping the maximum rebate at $15,000. CalAm is supportive of our adding this rebate, and we do have funds available in our rebate program. Since the September meeting, I've had the opportunity to sit in on a program with multifamily housing using these types of devices, and especially multifamily housing that's on master meters, where so that each unit's not independently metered, and it has been very effective in reducing leaks within those master metered units. So I'm recommending, as part of this resolution, that we not only provide the rebate for visitor serving commercial facilities, but also for apartment complexes that are on master meters. And I think if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time, but the resolution is just amending the rebate table to add these rebates.
So I have a question. Sorry, I wasn't at the water demand meeting. I wasn't a director at the time. Are there estimates or projections? I'm just curious about how much water could be saved.
Well, okay, so in the staff report, I think I alluded to the fact that Pebble Beach Company. So we started having a conversation with both Portola Plaza Hotel and Pebble Beach prior to the pandemic. And Pebble Beach Company went ahead and installed these fixtures in their hotels in 2020. And the result was very positive, especially for rooms that are vacant. And, you know, if there's nobody there to realize that the toilet is continually running, that becomes something that this type of a flow meter provides notice of. And so it was very positively accepted by the Pebble Beach Company, and Portola Plaza, who was also one of the people we talked to prior to 2020, is ready right now to proceed with it. I think that I could see outreach to our multifamily large apartment buildings with this information as well. And hopefully we can get some other people on board. But yeah, I think it's very effective, and it's being pushed a lot in the water efficiency industry right now as a way to save water.
But the actual amount of savings, there's no real evidence out there. So it's mostly if you detect, you know that you're curtailing a leak. So there is savings, but there's no quantification that we've seen.
Well, and it just sounds that from a profit margin motive, if somebody's, if was it Portola Valley that did it voluntarily in 2020, or I'm sorry, which, whatever.
Pebble-
Right, sounds like they think it would save a lot of water because it just on the profit motive, so.
Yes.
Sure could be.
Yeah, that's what's driving it. And as Stephanie said, during the pandemic, when there were low vacancy rates, it really came through because you didn't have somebody just, you know, jiggling the handle on a toilet on a regular basis. So, and so for a lot of the hotels that maybe are empty Monday through Wednesday, it'll still have that similar kind of benefit. So hopefully, you know, they begin to talk to each other. We do outreach to the Hospitality Association. So, you know, once the rebate is in place, we'll probably let them know either at the quarterly lunch or at one of their other MCHA meetings.
Yeah,
Thanks.
actually, we will be at the quarterly lunch the 22nd of February, and assuming the board adopts this at the board meeting on the 13th, it would be effective at that time. So we definitely make an announcement. And like I said, I'd like to also follow up with multifamily housing.
Great, thanks.
Let me ask a question, Stephanie. So it alerts somebody, some central office, and they find the people that work on their plumbing. That's basically how it works. You know, they know what room it's in.
Yes, because it's what's called a smart network.
Yeah.
And so they can identify where that device is to go fix it. It's also kind of goes in line with the board adopted a rebate last year, or it was a year ago, for smart flow meters.
I remember that.
Allows someone to track their water record, you know, at the meter, basically what's going on in a property. And this just narrows it down even further, so you can actually pinpoint where your situation is, where the problem is.
And this is part of CalAM's rebate reimbursement project, is that right?
It would fall into both the CalAM rebate and the district's portion of the rebate. So the district funds non-CalAM. So if it's in the Seaside Municipal System or an area that's not served by CalAM in the district, then it would be funded by the district, but otherwise it's the ratepayers.
And we determine that, and CalAM doesn't ask questions. I mean, they don't ever get involved in these decisions that we make.
Well,
on
like
what
I said,
they're gonna pay.
they are supportive of this. And if there was a situation where they weren't supportive, I wouldn't be bringing it to the board for approval.
Okay. Thank you. Sounds great.
The
Any other questions?
yes, Chair. The 15,000 is coming out of CalAM money, right? CalAM give us the money and we dole it out, or how did that work?
So Alvin, the only time it would come out of the districts is if it were in say, the Seaside Municipal System. And in that case, the district funds the rebates for that system. Otherwise, the rebate program is funded through CalAM's rates and is provided to all of the ratepayers in the CalAM system.
And the current funding ends at the end of this calendar year, and then the next general rate case will kick in. So currently, the balance of available rebate monies for all rebate programs is, Steph, do you have that number? It's like,
I don't have it right now, but last
Just-
year we did not do as many rebates as we should have done.
yeah, so I think it's still over $100,000 in the rebate fund
Oh, no,
for,
it's well over that. It's probably
Yeah.
close to 300,000. So yeah.
Okay, and my next question, I seen this item on consent. I think you need to make it an action item because you're gonna be giving something about leak protection, leak control, at the meeting, right? You got an
Oh,
action item on there about
fix
leak
it.
control,
yeah, fix the leak week. Yeah,
fix the leak week. Now, this needs to be moved right behind that. So people will understand and we'll bring out that about the resident.
yeah, we can do that.
I
Just
think
leave-
it looks a lot better than
Yeah.
having this on consent and we giving some out on action item like.
Great
like
idea.
that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And
Um, go ahead.
it's not available right now to single residences, isn't that correct?
No, this particular rebate will be available only to visitors serving commercial facilities and the larger apartment buildings. So those that
But
have more.
But it still makes it an opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely, yes. I
Sure,
think that's
no,
a great
it's-
idea.
Great.
And it also gives us the opportunity to set a time period for the residents. So y'all need to think about that because that question may be asked. When would the residents be ready so they don't think that we keeping them out?
Well,
So-
and actually the smart flow meter that we've already approved is what works well for the residential units. So
Okay.
this would not
So
be.
you
an
can,
rebate.
so just say that, Stephanie, during the,
Sure.
Yeah.
as an action item.
Yeah, that's a good way to clear it up.
And one last
Okay.
question.
Okay,
Stephanie, one last question. I'm sorry, Chair. What's happening on February 22nd?
Oh, it's just a quarterly hospitality association luncheon.
That we go to, and it's an opportunity to just tell them what's up, what's
What's
new.
new?
Do directors ever attend these?
Not those, directors are invited to the annual gala, which has been sometimes really like a gala and sometimes more like just a dinner. And then there's the real estate folks hold a holiday luncheon where the directors are invited.
No, the reason,
yeah.
the reason I'm asking is since I don't know about shiny, but certainly new, it'd be an opportunity to
Oh, yeah, you need to go because they're waiting on you.
well, yeah, right. Yeah, but just to sort of introduce myself, meet and greet a little bit. You think it's inappropriate for the director to be
Need to
there?
go. That's right.
you
You
wear your
need to
silver
go.
slippers.
Sorry, what?
I said you can wear your silver slippers. I will.
Right.
Mark, I'll follow up with you on some opportunities that you could get out there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, let them meet you.
Yeah, so consider there's the Monterey Peninsula Chamber, there's the
Carmel.
Monterey Commercial Property Owners Association, there's the Carmel Chamber and the Pacific Grove Chamber. So we'll get you some information on all of those and try to create the appropriate time for you to mingle.
okay, thanks.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move approval.
A second.
Okay, thank you. Since there's nobody in the audience, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Edwards,
Approval.
Director Eisenhart,
Approved.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
So this next one does not warrant as much discussion. But Stephanie, you want to just describe what it is
Yeah,
for
very-
authorization? Yeah.
Very quickly, yes. Every year we have to renew our license for Waterwise Gardening in Monterey County. It's a software program that is hosted on the district's website, and our local Water Awareness Committee in Monterey County and Marina Coast Water also linked to provide this special software for people to build their own garden design. And it's, like I said, it's the staff report. We get approximately 2,000 unique visitors every year. This is just a standard item on our agenda, and it is a $5,000, which is budgeted license, and it runs from March 1st to February 28th.
Any questions?
Done.
Good.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Let's have a roll call vote, please, Sarah.
Director Eisenhart,
Approved.
Director Edwards,
Approval.
Chair Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes 3-0.
it's Teresha's turn. You got your
Yes, Director
section
Anderson.
now.
Item number 4 is the receive and file second quarter financial activity for fiscal year 22-23. The second quarter did conclude on December 31st, and so we've done a snapshot as of December 31st. In the staff note, I have summarized the variances for the revenues and expenses. And I've kind of like line item those.
Yeah.
The exhibits 4A is the revenue and expenditure table in a table form. And then 4B and 4C are same information, but split out between revenue and expenditures in graph form. So just like to point your attention to exhibit 4A, which is the table itself. On the revenue side, we've got total revenues collected through December 31st is $13.9 million against a budget of 16.3. Keep in mind, what we're doing is we're splitting the budget into the number of quarters we have. So of a $32 million budget, you see $16 million budget because that's for the half year. So what we do is we just take the budget and do a period budgeting by dividing number of months, and then also calculating for whatever quarter it is. So second quarter year-to-date budget should have been $16 million. Our revenues 13.9 on the expense side. Because it's a balanced budget, 16.3 expenses against 11.2 in actual expenditures. Some of those differences, the line items, you will see the water supply charge. Again, the first collection came in December, which is about 60% of the budget that comes in December. And then next collection is going to be in April, and the final one is going to be in June. Property taxes, same as the water supply charge. User fees, it's basically based on the actual collections that KLM collects and sends the revenue over to us. We don't have any control on that. It's except for the percentage that's dictated. It's 8.325% is the user fee. PWM water sales, it's $6.8 million against a 6.1. And again, this is a period budget. So basically we don't do the adjustments for every month, like a summer and winter months, like the peak and off peak. So we basically just do a flat out 6-month budget against a 6-month actuals. Connection charge, 200,000 thus far against a 250. Permit fees, 100,000. Interest is about a little over than what we had budgeted. And, you know, when we started the year, the interest rates were not as favorable, not as high. Now we're seeing some good interest rates because of the Federal Reserve Bank increasing the rates. So by the time we conclude the year, interest rates going to be much higher than what we had expected. Reimbursements, the actual reimbursements, that is basically whatever projects needs to be done for reimbursement works, we do that and bill them. Grants, same thing. It's dictated by the level of work that needs to be done or that's to be done. We budgeted, but that doesn't mean that it's going to all materialize in the same quarter. Most of them are pushed out into the future quarters. And then other revenues, just a capture of basically miscellaneous things like insurance refunds, people coming in to buy boat packets, things like that. So that's kind of like a catch-all line item. On the expense side, we have a $2.3 million against a 2.2 for the 6-month budget. It's a little high, and typically what happens on the salary line item is at the beginning of the year in July, we turn out and pay CalPERS a lump sum upfront fee, or actually the expense. And that's then what happens is as we go out through the year, it gets captured in the budget. So we budget for the entire year, but the payment for cash flow purposes is made out on July 1. So typically you will see salary line item when we start July, it's going to be much higher than what is budgeted. But by the time we go to the end of the fiscal year, it'll level out. Supplies and services, as with previous months, the consulting and professional fees are a little bit less than what we had budgeted. Fixed asset, again, we budget them. I spread it out along the 2 quarters. Here you're seeing 225, but the actual expenditure is when it hits. There are some expenses that did happen in January, so that's going to get caught up with that. Project expenses, that includes the PWM water sale, so that's why you see a high number, $8 million against $12 million. Rest of the project expenses, the $4 million is basically the reimbursement projects. Debt service gets paid twice a year in December and in June. And so you're only seeing the December payment there. June 1 is going to have the debt service and the interest in there. Election expenses, that's not going to come in until probably April or May of next year, or of this year. So although we've incurred that, we have not received the bill. So you'll see a $0 there. Contingencies, we budget that line item just in case throughout the year. If there's any contingencies, we pull it from that line item. So we have not had to pull anything from that line item. It's 0. And then reserves, that line item gets balanced out at the end of the fiscal year. So when we do the budget, initially at the start off of the budget, we do balance the budget by using reserves or booking reserves. But those entries don't get made until the close of the fiscal year. So you'll typically see that 0 throughout the fiscal year until you see the last quarter reporting. So that's the report I have. And then all of these line items, like I said, is detailed in the staff note. So with that, if there's any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
So when you do mid-year review, are we going to be over budget, or are we going to be under, or are we going to be just right?
It'll most likely be just right because the user fee is going to be higher than what we had budgeted initially. So there's going to be some additional revenue coming in there. I don't have big ticket line items going through. The only big ticket line items that came through was the flood damage expenditure, which was $250,000. So you're going to see that in the mid-year budget adjustment. So if there's anything, most likely level off, because I haven't, Dave, unless you know if there's any big ticket expenses that we're going to address in the mid-year, I haven't heard of any.
No, they're not. And when we talk about the agenda, I was going to ask you about the mid-year budget adjustment. We need to meet this week on that, but I don't see anything major.
Yeah, and if we can get it in this month, I'd love to get it in this month, because when we start in March, that old saying, why are we so late with it? I'm sitting on city council, it's usually in January, but I know we're a little different. I think you explained why we got like water supply charge. Is that 119% over or under?
No, that's over.
The
So
bracket.
we've over collected. But as I had said, keep in mind the total budget for this $3.4 million. What we do for this is we just split it up into half. So we said for 6 months, it's 1.7, but we collect 60% in the first collection. So that's why you'll see it's higher than what's budgeted here. But when we go towards the end of the year, it'll level out to 3.4.
Okay, thank you. No other questions from me.
So
Okay,
I'm sorry, Chair, I have a couple of questions that mostly just betraying my learning curve. So please, Suresh, be very patient with me, and they're not long, hopefully, questions, just a few really. On the expense side, strike that. On the revenue side, connection charges, Are these primarily people who haven't paid and then have to reconnect? When they get their-
No,
What are
yeah,
connections?
no, yeah, it's, connection charges are a name for our capacity fee. And it's basically when you pull a permit for a project, either renovation or new construction, you're getting a water permit, and that water permit identifies how much capacity for use the new project is going to be. So it might be 1/10 of an acre foot, or, you know, 1/4 of an acre foot. And so to join the system, or to become under the aegis of the district, we charge a capacity fee based on the amount of new water that will be required. So it's like connecting into the system.
So it's a new connection charge, not a.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, other water companies, I don't know.
Yeah.
In my experience, charge for reconnections when there's a failure to pay.
Yeah, exactly. When you didn't pay for a while and then you have to get back on. Yeah.
Okay, and then going back to the damage repair, Suresh, that we voted on last board meeting for the Carmel River that we talked about with the salmon traps and all that. What, under expenses, which general category is that? Is
So
that
that'll
project?
be reported, that'll be reported under project expenses.
It would be, okay, thanks, that.
But we
so-
have, but Director Eisenhardt, we are tracking that separately, so we will give the board a report on the actual expenses once it's all said and done.
No, okay, fabulous. And then I was just trying to understand on the debt service, is the June debt service payment going to be significantly more than the other biannual payment? In other words,
No, it's level debt service, so it's about 100 and, I'm sorry, it's no, so June, I'm sorry, so December payment is only interest, and the June payment is going to be interest and debt service as well.
which is why,
Principal and interest,
which brings us closer at that time to the budgeted amount.
to
Okay,
230,000.
understood. Okay. Those are just some of the questions I had. I think the only ones that stuck out for me at the time. So, thanks.
Yeah, and actually, to spring off of the last two questions, there will be a balloon payment due, and I believe that's June 30, not July 1, so it will land in this fiscal year. We've started talking to Mechanics Bank, but I don't think we've gotten much traction with them yet. We want them to propose a refinancing so that we can compare that to paying off the debt with our own reserves, or possibly refinancing with somebody else. So we're getting started on that. So that will be something that we'll have to discuss at mid-year budget, because I don't think we had it in the budget per se. And then the second thing that you brought up is the disaster cleanup, the flood/drought reserve. And I see Thomas just popped in. We now realize there's going to be a very large bill for debris clearance. We're hoping we can get reimbursed through FEMA or Cal OES, but the river is just full of potential hazards that are going to need to be cleared. I see that Thomas Christensen has joined us, but I just want you to know that we're going to authorize that as a subject area or as a category in the same light as last meeting, where we identified the Fish Weir and the Sleepy Hollow facility. So this is just another one. So I just wanted to make you aware that that'll be a category that'll get added and reported on, for which there was no budget. So hopefully we get reimbursement.
So,
And on that, I'm sorry.
go ahead,
Alan.
Director, go ahead.
Yeah, just on that point, Dave or Thomas, either one, are we still evaluating the extent of the damage from the flood, or do we pretty much know that now? Because I mean, obviously, we don't want to submit anything to FEMA until, I think we don't want to make a submission to FEMA until we can wrap our arms around what we need to ask for.
Yeah, that's correct. This is Thomas, real quick. And the good news about what Dave is just saying is that there's no, at this point, no increase in the ask of, we went up to 250K. our oversight was that I didn't list debris specifically in that note. So just for background for the new board members, we have a in-channel vegetation management program. And what that basically deals with is if a tree falls across the river and can create a potential hazard, like float downstream and hit a bridge or divert flows into a stream bank and cause erosion, the district typically goes in with its vegetation management budget and addresses those hazards. What typically happens in a big flooding event is you get way more trees and debris piles that district staff can't really handle on their own. And we've done this for many years, hired the California Conservation Corps. And that basically get a bunch of 20-year-old folks that can kind of wrestle some of this stuff out with our direction. We run saws, they run saws, and then we reduce the hazard. That being said, it's not flood control, it's for reducing hazards and erosion control. And then if property owners ask, we say any flood control benefit is incidental. So I think all we're trying to say is that under that 250K umbrella, we're hoping to get the CCC out here for a few days here and there, and then get reimbursed for that. And just trying to lay that out there because I failed to mention it in the staff note, and then I started inspecting the river and I said, oh, you know, there's a half a house size or half a trailer size debris pile and that we're discovering that are sprinkled out throughout the river.
Right, and go ahead, Director. But just I was less concerned about whether or not we were within our internal $250,000 disaster reserve budget, and more concerned is if we are able to, are we still information gathering as to the total flood related costs before we ask for some certain from FEMA? That's my bigger concern. It's the pass through, right? I want to make sure we're asking for everything that we need, and if we know yet how much it is.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to know, but we do have the funding mechanisms set up, and we are in communication with both federal and state. I think what they're looking for are categories, but they realize that there's no full budget, and then we will apply for reimbursement and they'll review it. So, but Simona's on that, and Thomas, you've been staying in touch with Simona and Maureen on how we're going to file this stuff. So I think we're okay. As we, you know, for example, we've already done road repair, and I think they're getting ready to submit that already to FEMA, but there will be more Sleepy Hollow costs. So it's not we're not required to have a total budget at the front end.
Yeah, that's my question right there. Can you make the ask 300, 400,000, or do you have to have a budget? We know this potential of more. We're going to need more before FEMA cut it off. Can we ask up front while we're still doing this? Because we're going to, you know, once they cut it off, it's going to be hard to get in there for that second time. So I don't care if you ask for a larger number up front, you know.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you. Thomas, do you have any idea what?
Well, I just know in the past with FEMA in 95 and in 98, there was specific site visits where the FEMA people actually inspected what you were claiming was a problem. And they would sometimes say, yes, this is a qualified site. We think it's worth this, and they would put a value on it. There was a fair amount of back and forth, and other things were like, nah, they're like, we're not gonna pay for that. So I think we're gonna have to go through that exercise with them. So I think the most important is that you have kind of your placeholder, which is the Carmel River, and a few line items like Sleepy Hollow, Weir Road, or whatever, and then they kind of go and visit and poke around. So I think, you know, we have a place at the table, but I think we're going to have a little bit more of kind of site visits, if you will.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Make that number high where they have to cut it down.
Right.
Yeah, and you know,
For debris and stuff.
right, and to follow up on what Director Edwards was saying, you know, I just don't know how this works, right? Mechanically with FEMA. I mean, it'd be great, and I don't know if Simone's done this before on this type of an issue, but it would be great to sort of get an update, maybe. You know, if there's, obviously the concern here is whatever the monetization of all of this damage is, you know, how do we position ourselves to get all of it, right? Not more, but not less. And that's the only issue, right? So, you know, that's it. I mean.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, we'll visit on that.
And
Well,
Dave, just to add on the authorization of expenditures for internal tracking purposes, we need to take a staff note to the board to include the Carmel River Walk in there. Because there's going to be a high level of scrutiny from the auditors on that, because we're using the reserve fund, and we specified the Sleepy Hollow and the RIA project only in the use of reserves. So to include Carmel River Walk in there, we just need to modify the staff note.
Okay,
Can we
Can we
put
do
that
that
in
on-
the consent calendar?
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Put it on consent.
One
so Tom,
question.
you'll do a brief staff note on that, please.
Yeah,
All right.
Well, I guess I can ask Thomas, how good are these groups that come out to assess the damage? How good are they at their estimates of how much it's going to be? I mean, are they usually 80 or 90% of what it takes, or 50, or?
you know, it's a good question. You know, it was a long time ago. I remember being at a few of the meetings. I think it boils down in the end to the receipts that you have. If something's covered, then I think you're allowed to do the work, and then you produce these receipts. What I can't remember is if there was a cap of some sort on each site of
Yeah,
some kind of nature like that.
I imagine the crews, I don't know if their fees are consistent across the state, but if they're regionally, you know, very different, depending upon what your location is and the labor rate, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious about the whole process. Thank you. Have we voted on this yet? Our financial activity report? I remember
yet.
that we didn't. Okay, we've had a first and a second, I believe.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay. Now we can take a vote. Thank you.
Director Edwards,
Approval.
Director Eisenhart,
Aye.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, Suresh, we can move on to item 5, the investment report.
So the item number 5 is consider approval of second quarter fiscal year 22-23 investment report. Happy to announce that the investment report is in line with the district's reserve policy. There's 2 conditions we check. One of them is whether we have enough investments to last for the next 6 months in our portfolio, anticipated expenditures, and we do have that. Also, the portfolio is in compliance with the California Government Code and the permitted investments of Monterey County. So we do meet both those tests. Exhibit 5A, which is the actual investment report. You will see in our LAIF local agency fund, we have about a little under $10 million, and LAIF's yielding about a little over 2%, 2.07. On our Bank of America, that's our operating money market and checking account. It comes in and out of there. We've got December collections in there. That money is $7.8 million on the money market. That's why it's a huge number that will get shifted over to LAIF, and also some will get over to the CD account. On the multi-bank securities account, you'll see the certificate of deposit accounts with various maturity dates and various yields. We do stagger our CDs. That's the safest, and that's also yielding the highest interest rate we can get for a brief period there.
Yeah, and Suresh, we got one that's coming due today.
That's already been reshifted to a 4.75% interest rate.
That was gonna be the question, whether you took the cash out or reinvested. So you already did that.
it's reinvested. Yeah,
Yep.
the nice thing with the software that we use with multi-bank securities is that as soon as the maturity, CD maturity dates are coming up, we do get notification, and we can like go ahead and realign the purchase date a week after or 2 weeks after the maturity date. So whatever gets matured, it gets reinvested unless we need the cash.
Yep.
So as Dave was saying, the maturity date today, the very first line item there at 1.8%, that was an old CD, got bought in 2020, 2021 era, and even early part of 22. We were getting some low yield CDs. As you can see, that one was a 1.8% CD. We just reinvested that CD at 4.75% for 5 years. So interest rates are much more favorable in today's market, but that's what the gamble is. We just don't know what the interest rate is going to be. We try to capture when it's good. We try to reinvest our CDs at a high yielding. So the average yield that we're getting from multi-bank securities right now is 2.4%. It's still a little higher than LAIF, but keep in mind, LAIF was giving us less than 2% 3 months ago, and about 1.25% about 6 months from now. So we're doing really well with the CD investments. And then we also have some US government bonds, and that when we bought one in 21, the yield was not as good. A 22 yield was about 2.5%. So like I said, again, the market is what it is when we go to reinvest in these things. But all in all, we have about $24 million in the market value of our internal assets. Then we also report on the Port Pebble Beach reclamation project. And so they basically have just the operating money market account. What happens when the water sales gets collected, gets put in that account, and then we turn around and pay out to POD, Carbon-Lydia Wastewater District, so that they can pay for the operations of that project. So this is the investment report in a nutshell.
So Suresh, given the loose board policy of reserves at 50% of the annual budget, isn't that a policy?
Yeah.
We're over that at this point.
Yeah, it's 50% of the operating expenses. And so operating expenses, you have to take into account PWM water sales now as well, because that's part of our operating revenue expenses. So it's gone up a little bit. I mean, it's just the nature of the business.
Yep.
But I think it's about, when I calculated for the budget purposes, I believe it was around 43%.
Yeah. So at the budget workshop, prospectively for the next fiscal year budget, we should look at the reserves and other needs, potential needs for money. You know, what we've been doing is just trying to accumulate, because we've got so much litigation, Measure J, you know, just a variety of things hanging out there. Plus, we've been building projects, much of which has come from reserves because of, you know, the water supply charge is not sufficient. So there is a reason to maintain a high level of reserves, but we should probably talk about that during the budget workshop in May.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions, or can we have a motion?
Just one question. Suresh, I noticed that the terms of the CDs, a big chunk of the investments are at varying time lengths, some 5 years, some 1 or 2 years. And we do have obviously the CD coming due today. So what goes into determining the term for upcoming, or maturing CDs?
Yeah, so two things. One of them is whether we need the money, when we need the money. The other thing is the yield itself. For example, if we're doing a 2-year CD now or 3-year CD now, it's not as favorable as a 5-year CD. 5-year CD is about 4.7%. I believe 2-year CD or 3-year CD we looked at was about 3 point something. And so it was much better to put into a 5-year CD as opposed to locking it into 3 years at 3%. So we do look at the yield itself and also the need for the cash flow.
Yeah, and a couple of things run that. These are negotiable CDs, so they're always tradable, so we can get out. But when interest rates go up, face value goes down. And so we don't want to be in a position where cash, when needed, has to be sold at a discount. And so they're laddered out so that incrementally pieces of cash come in at the full value. They make it all the way to maturity so that we don't have to take interest rate risk. The second determinant is they're FDIC insured up to 250,000. So you can see almost every one of them are just about 250,000 or just under. And so that gives us the protection again against default or price risk and so forth. So there's some odd fellow names on these CDs. I mean, if you were to look at the actual, we've had, banks in Salt Lake City and banks in, Bullhead City, Nevada, and so forth. But as long as they're FDIC insured and an interest rate that's favorable, we've gone ahead and done it. But the reason there's so many with so much staggered or what we call laddered due dates is simply that, so that you're always getting some cash flow so you can make a decision on, do we reinvest it or do we have a need?
Right.
A question
ahead,
for
Joe.
Mr. Thank you. A question for Mr. Laredo.
Yes, sir.
This taxpayer lawsuit, is it a way that they could come in and look at all our finances and say, we got money? Or do that stays out of it?
No, I don't believe that would be relevant. This is going to be determined on the law, not on the facts of what we've got. It's going to be how does the sunset provision work in theory, and whether or not this is a discretion that the board has to sunset, or whether it's required by law. But it's not going to be based upon an examination of our assets.
Okay, thank you.
It may, however, be based on an appellate judge rather than a superior court judge.
And
We
I guess
just don't-
that's important to know the timing. It's not going to happen this year, and it's probably not even going to be happening next fiscal year.
Okay,
In terms of the final result.
You.
And then just going back real quick, I had a question. So this CD coming due, I mean, I know this is silly or micromanaging, but I mean, with the $500,000 jobs report for January of this year, most folks are predicting a rate increase in the March meeting for the Fed. And if you think that that's a likelihood, does this, I guess, Suresh, my question is to you, does this impact our re-upping or renewal of the CD decisions, a month before there could be a likely rate hike?
I'll answer for him. Yeah, we don't play the market. So we just take what rates are available at the time. But it's a good point. If we're anticipating the Fed doing another rate increase, we could sit on cash for a month and wait for that to happen. And then, you've got higher yields, but we tend not to do that. We tend to just say, what do we got right now, and live with it.
Well, or not even sit on it. I mean, aren't there 30 or 45 day CDs? Is that just not what the district does?
Well, so you see that local agency investment fund at the top.
Yep.
That's kind of our 30 to 40, that's our short-term investment pool.
Yeah, everything's parked in LAIF until basically we figure out its excess revenue or excess money that can be parked in a couple of year CDs. That's when we go ahead and do that. Not to say that we don't watch the federal news, we do. And if there's a CD that needs to be bought today and we know Fed's going to make some news next week, we do wait for that news to be able to capitalize on that. But we don't hold out for like a month or two and say, let's capitalize on what the Fed's going to do, because our investments are so little. It's like $250,000 investment CDs at a time. So if we were to buy a CD, we just bought one today. If we were to buy a couple more CDs, we may probably buy another 2 or 3 CDs in the next 6 months. And that's going to be about it. Because that's $8 million that's sitting in the money market right now. That's going to get paid out, because that's actually the revenue that came in for all of the expenses that's going to happen between January, February, March, until we get the next payment in April from the water supply and property tax charge.
All right, I get it. I understand. Okay.
Got
Yeah,
it?
the Fed's never called us on their quantitative easing decision. I don't know why.
Okay, if we are ready, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move approval.
Second,
Sarah?
Director Edwards,
Approval.
Director Eisenhart,
aye.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, Suresh, item 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Item
item number
six for
6. Sorry, item
December.
number 6 is consider adoption of treasurer's report for the month of December.
Mhm.
After the end of December, that's when we did the second quarter reporting. So it's kind of like a little backward. We should have done the treasurer's report first on the agenda, but that's okay. We cut checks in the amount of $1.9 million during the month. There were no rebate checks issued during the month of December. Exhibit A is the actual treasurer's report. B and C are the listing of the payroll and regular check register. And Exhibit D is the unaudited financial statement. So if you look at Exhibit 6A, the treasurer's report, you will see that we started the month with $17.8 million in the bank, and we ended the month with $24.4 million. And that's the big reason was we got the property tax revenue on the water supply charge collected during the month of December. So that's why what it upped the balance. But all in all, ended the month with $24.4 million in the bank. Reclamation account had $15,000 in the bank. And you can see all of the activities listed for the individual accounts that we hold. If there's any questions on that.
Yes, on 6A, under Monterey Pencil money market, why we got two brackets that, what, 2 million and 750,000?
Yes, so $2 million, if you look at the bracket number and right left of that, you'll see $2 million are positive. So that just means money market money, $2 million got transferred over to the checking account to cover for the checks. And then the other 750,000 bracket, if you see two columns to the right, multi-banks, that just meant we bought 3 CDs at $750,000, 250.
Okay. And that 1.2 million is Pebble Beach, right?
That's Pebble Beach. Money went over to Carmel Area Wastewater District.
Okay.
Additional questions? I don't have any. Okay, I move approval.
I'll second it.
Sarah? You're up.
Yes,
Thank you.
Director Eisenhart,
Approved,
Director Edwards,
Approval.
Chair Anderson.
Approval.
Motion passes 3-0.
Hey, Madam Chair, the next 3 items, 7, 8, and 9 are informational only.
Okay,
You should take a quick read of item 7 that Suresh has prepared to take note that the COPs or certificates of participation are now fully paid as of July 1. That's also why you don't see any interest rate or amount for the prior period. That's very good news, and hard to believe that 2 of the 9 of us were actually there when those got issued, Dave Laredo and Dave Stolten. Over the weekend, I ran into Tom Jameson, who's an attorney on the project, and I said, and we started talking about it, and I said, oh my God, we're reminiscing about something that happened 30 years ago. But anyway, the debt is fully paid off. The district's name was on that debt. The letter of credit was through Bank of America at this point in time. It was originally Sumitomo way back when. But the remarketing agent has gone through three different firms, and that's all over. It's all over now. So a lot of the discussion at the reclamation project centers around building up renewal and replacement reserves, or a capital reserve, now that the annual debt service payment is no longer required. So that'll be interesting. The district intends to keep a role with the reclamation project, even though it's been talked about from time to time with the COP's retired, maybe the district doesn't need to be involved anymore. And I've reinforced that the district should be involved. We've served as an example for the tank rehabilitation project. We managed to finance 2 years out to help smooth the impact on that. And not every public partner in the reclamation project can do that. And there are some significant 10 years out and 15 years out renewal and replacement that might need to be debt financed. And the district would then be able to step right back into its role as the owner of the recycled water to do yet another installment sale, certificate of participation financing. So I think as of right now, the district will remain in the project as a co-equal, and even though the debt is paid off. So, and 8 and 9 are just standard reports that we do every month that you'll see also in the board packet.
Well, number 9, Measure J, will you be able to do a report on that? A budget report, or are we waiting on stuff to come in? I want to keep it in front of the public. So
Yeah, that's a great question, because we are now scheduling up for the March board meeting in closed session an unveiling of the appraisal. And I need to send a tickler reminder to our eminent domain attorney to review the draft and provide any comment, because we also need to get him going on drafting the form of offer letter, which you should also be able to review in March. So I don't know, we could certainly do an update in the general manager's report at this February board meeting, but I think the bombshell will be when the appraisal comes in and we announce that we will be making an offer shortly, and that will be in the March timeframe.
well, yeah, like it, excuse me, like in February, I just like to run over the numbers if we can,
Sure.
because when you hit them in March with that other one, we know we got money to pay for it. So we're
Yep.
being up front with it. So
Yeah, we'll do.
let's look at a good report on that, if we
Good
can.
idea.
Yeah, and I think how would you feel also if I said, hey, we've wrapped up all of the appraisal process, and there will be a draft for board review and a decision point, next month. I don't see any harm in telling people that's coming.
Mhm.
As
Dave,
long as
what-
we being transparent, and that's what I like to do. And I
Yeah,
like
Dave.
to keep it out in front of that we ain't folding our tent yet. It's still out there. So you and Mr. Ray will come up with whichever way y'all want to present it.
Yeah, Dave, do you feel any problem with, announcing in February that the work is done and it will be under review by the board?
I don't have a problem you saying that it's done, it's still under review. And,
Yeah.
that one of the first things you might get is a Public Records Act request,
Right,
but.
Right.
But
it's squarely in that safe harbor. though.
we need to make it clear that the document itself remains confidential.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know we're ready for Public Records Act now. I know Joel probably ready for it now.
Yeah.
He ain't been through enough of them, so.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
All right.
is that it? Oh, no, you want to have any
Yeah.
comment about the draft agenda?
Yes, I just
Yeah,
walk you through
Dave,
there.
if I may, the one in the agenda packet, it's a older version. So if I may, through the chair, share the most updated agenda for the February board meeting. And committee members, are you able to see the screen there with the agenda?
I can see it.
Okay. So starting from the first page, the meeting will start at 6 p.m. There is no closed session meeting on this date, so that's been removed. Moving on to the consent calendar here. I did update the caption under item number 7 in your packet. That's item number 8. And then if I understood correctly, Thomas's item will be under consent. So that's
That's
It
right.
appears here. And that's just the working caption for now. And
Oh.
then, yeah, so, and then Dave, I don't know if you want to speak to general manager's report and report from district council.
Right, and I see that you've already moved out the rebate resolution, so that's
Right.
good.
So that's been moved
To action.
To
you'll see.
action
Oh, to
and
action,
right,
thank you.
right, and right behind Fix a Leak Week.
Yeah,
And Joel, under item 11, I don't believe we have an update on pending litigation this month.
Okay.
I talked to Director Rowley and he said he asked for a closed session. Have y'all talked to him about it not being on here?
Yeah, the issue, the subject matter that he wanted to have a closed session on doesn't fit the Brown Act safe harbors for closed session. So I'm not, well, it doesn't seem to me that it does, which is why we didn't add it there, but I didn't come up with a resolution on how to deal with it. But the concept of, and I think what we were talking about is moving ahead on the expansion without Cal-Am, that item, and being more aggressive on it.
Well, can you just add that to the agenda so we can talk about it? Under the last item.
Yeah, so I also had a pretty lengthy conversation with Karen Paul about it. I'm not sure we're really ready for the February board meeting because I've been meeting with Rem Scherzinger and Marina Coast and Paul Shudo of Monterey One Water. We've looked at a couple of different ways to put a credit out in front, a couple of different ways to, and we're kind of getting off topic here, but we're,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Have it ready for water supply that March
That's-
6th.
And that's what I told Karen. Yeah, that's what I told Karen. We could discuss it at the water supply planning. And then if need be, take it to the board, at least as an update, probably maybe some action, maybe not action, but you need to layer over it, the Prop 218 process, because neither Marina Coast or ourselves has, in my opinion, has sufficient revenue to actually take on the debt without a Prop 218. And you need also to, Marina Coast is willing to put its credit up in front, but
Well, Dave,
all of
we
these
can-
things need to be talked out.
right, we can talk about it at water supply. I don't want to take us
Yeah.
off this agenda stuff, what we're doing now.
Yep. So let's move to the public here. Yeah, there we go. So these are the important business items. Suresh, you're on with the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report at this point.
Correct. We
Yep.
have the draft.
And then you have the Fix a Leak Week resolution, which will be followed by the rebate resolution.
mhm.
And then you'll receive, and if you choose to discuss the Oversight Panel's annual report, keeping in mind that it's advisory only. And then finally, and I guess I should ask you this, Suresh, but we're still on for the adoption mid-year budget
No, that's gonna go to March with the delay in close of the ACFA report.
of the audit. Yeah.
Yeah, because we
okay.
need the opening balances for the reserves from that.
Okay. So, yep, there you go,
Mhm.
Joel.
Okay.
All right. And that's it in terms
Hey.
of the board meeting and the informational items. You also have in your packet a committee meeting schedule. It was agendized as adopt, so that would require an action. But it is under discussion items. If you want to just affirm that you've seen it and you agree with all those dates, then we can just take that under advice.
That was for just the,
Just this committee.
oh, right. Yeah, mine are good. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
we're
good
all-
with it.
Yeah, all right. So that's about as close to adoption as we can get under discussion.
Okay,
And so it's considered adopted. And I think that's it.
thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody.
Lots of action.
All right, have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.